So a few years ago, I was walking near the place where I live, and I passed a store on the street that had what I thought at the time was a very weird specialty. They only had basically one kind of product, or one product category. It was chemicals from Germany. That's all they sold, chemicals from Germany. When I say chemicals, I mean...
Bad history.
I mean household chemicals, cleaning supplies, the powder for your washing machine, those little tablets that you put in dishwashers, cleaning stuff, and related things, shampoo, various cosmetics. They even had condoms, weirdly enough. How weird is it when you don't trust your own country's condoms? But anyway,
this was prophylactic standards.
This was kind of my introduction to this kind of, I don't know, what would you call it, subculture, this kind of world of people who are convinced that these kinds of products from Germany are simply better than what you can get on the Polish market, and they're willing to pay a premium to get them. And at the time, I thought these people were crazy. I thought this was just ridiculous, this whole idea. But over time, I learned that this is very much a thing in Poland. Every city has several stores like this. There are even e-commerce operations that are totally committed to importing these chemical products from Germany. And so it got me to thinking that maybe there is something to this, right? So many people believe it, and there's such a big business built on top of it that maybe there is something to it. And that is the topic of our conversation on today's episode of the KrakCast. One thing, though, before we dive deep, though, I want to kind of try to focus our conversation on something, because a few days ago on Facebook, we put up a post asking people for help, advice, maybe examples of what we're going to talk about. And thanks a lot, by the way. Thanks to everybody who took the time to help us out. Lots and lots of useful comments. But looking at the comments, I could also see that a lot of people brought up related, similar, but still different topics, like subjective opinions about, I don't know, who has the best pizza or stuff like that. And so we're trying to keep things focused on manufactured consumer goods that are kind of assumed, rightly assumed, to be of the same standard everywhere. But for some reason, in Poland, they are different. And our question is, why is it that 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, that difference means inferior to what you can find, for example, in Germany? So, guys, before we dive deeper, I want to go around the room. Now, all of us in the last few days, we've been reading up on this in anticipation of this conversation. So,
have we?
So, well, some of us have. So, forget what you may have learned in the last few days. If I had asked you last week, for example, before you started reading about this, if I had asked you, Dave, if I had said, do you think it's possible that these multinational companies make versions of their products for the Polish market that are somehow inferior, would you believe me, or would you think that's conspiracy theory territory?
I suppose I've never really thought about it, to be honest with you.
You just kind of assume that it's the same everywhere.
Yeah, I suppose I would have a lot of faith in multinational companies' production methods, being uniform across anything that was branded the same country to country. I mean,
they wouldn't dare cut corners to save money here.
I mean, look, it depends. Like you were saying, you were right to frame it closely, because we got a lot of... Michael Collins made his first comment on the...
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike. And he says, bread.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for that, Mikey. And I like Fergie's one about do you count GTA 5, the Polish
That's
version?
an interesting example. There's some legal issues involved there.
That's a legal thing. Yeah. So you can't gamble in the game there. I loved some of the contributions.
A lot of comments there. Dr. Mike, is it even possible? Do you think this is a possibility, or is it crazy talk?
I would have thought it was crazy talk, except when we moved to Poland, I have a little bit of story here. We lived in the U.S. We would often visit my grandparents in Germany, and my mom doing laundry there would use the Persil, and it worked fine. We moved to Poland in the late '90s, and my mom is Persil is in the store there. She grabs it, uses it, and it's just not right. Is the water wrong here? Something's not right. Then she finally brings over some Persil from her mother from Germany, same packaging, everything like that. In the same washing machine, it works a lot better. And actually, this was already kind of admitted to, where other laundry companies like that making detergents basically said that they changed the quote unquote recipe for these products because they noticed that in Polish households they would usually use more than the suggested amount, so they basically weakened it.
So they were trying to help Polish consumers.
Yes, but the truth was, but the thing is, the packaging was the same size. It was shown as for the same amount of, if this was for 30 washes in the Poland, they didn't say this was for 25. They would say also for 30 washes. So a lot of people didn't buy that.
I have to say, my research has shown that it is a real thing. It's shocking, and it's.
We'll get to that in a second. Don't get ahead of the game here. Wait a second, Dave.
On detergents, they have a great line. They say, we'll get to food where they have their own. They seem to have stock phrases, these manufacturers, to reflect this. And for detergents, it's say they're adapting the product for water because there is hard and soft water.
Oh, yeah. Sounds reasonable.
Oh, so you dilute your product for us. Oh, thank you. Oh, so we thought it was to make more profit.
You check exactly in each municipality what the water quality level is like and adjust your product for the sales there.
All right, Josh, so going into this, did you think that the product, the quality of certain consumer goods in Poland is inferior to what you would find elsewhere in Europe?
Well, the short answer is no. I didn't really have any thought. I mean, to be honest, I mean, when I first moved here, which is 15 years or so ago now, I mean, the main concerns were the absence of bacon and decent British style sausages. Washing powder's different. I noticed that, and I think the explanation about quantities being shoveled into the machine is a plausible one. I'm reminded of Murray Walker, formerly the voice of Grand Prix, used to work as an advertising agent, and he apparently advised one of his consumer good clients that they should increase the diameter of the exit hole in a tube of toothpaste, because then people would get through by putting an inch of toothpaste on their toothbrush. They would actually get through the toothpaste more quickly, and thus they would sell more toothpaste.
Well, that's kind of that reminds me of the possibly fictional story of how a very familiar phrase was put on the back of shampoo bottles: rinse, lather, and repeat. Wash it twice just in case, right? Well, when it comes to the quality of Polish consumer goods and their counterparts elsewhere in Europe, when it comes to their quality and the ingredients they have, actually, we don't have to speculate. I mean, this might be under the radar of a lot of people, but there's plenty of information online, easily found, that verifies that, in fact, there is a huge difference between the Polish version and other versions of lots of familiar goods, not just the chemicals, but also food products as well. And this has been verified not only by lots of media outlets looking for an easy story, but we're talking about chemists have analyzed it, food scientists, like consumer advocates, both private and governmental. The Polish government actually sent a team to Lidl's and Aldi's close to the Polish border, in Germany close to the Polish border, and then in Polish stores close to the German border, identical goods, and analyzed them, and the results are clear. You absolutely cannot, you can't deny the reality here, Dave. Let me just go through the quick list of some of the things. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, one of my favorite ones, frozen fish sticks in Poland have a lot more breading than fish. Your chocolate bars with various kinds of hazelnuts have fewer hazelnuts. Your potato chips or crisps are fried in palm oil, which is apparently inferior to the sunflower oil they use in Germany. And the list goes on and on and on.
More flavor stuff as well.
For our British listeners, when John talks about frozen fish sticks, he means the good old fish finger, I believe.
Well, for the rest of the world, fish sticks, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway.
What are they called in Polish? Paluszki rybne?
Oh, they are.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, I did notice that when I discovered to my great joy that you could get fish fingers in Tesco in Poland, and then took them home and fried them up, and was distressed to discover that there was vastly more breadcrumb and a lot less fish.
Anybody else have any favorite examples of differences?
No, but I was going...
Okay, thanks.
Answering the question, isn't he?
No, I thought we would run through the list.
I only gave like three, but there's tons of them. There's tons of examples.
There is tons of them, and we'll get to that. But you were saying that this is a legitimate thing that we've kind of missed along with everyone else, and I think you're totally right about that. One of our loyal listeners, possibly, I don't know, maybe it's his first show, Brian Jones.
Thanks, Brian.
An interesting link from The Guardian where, 3 years ago, the European Commission was all over this. In an outspoken attack on the corporate giants, she claims to have been flagrantly breaking the law. The Czech Commissioner, Jira Jourova, told The Guardian, "We say for the first time clearly this is unfair commercial practice. In many cases, yes, I'm convinced the law has been broken and there's manifest cheating, from fruit drinks to fish fingers to detergents and luncheon meats. The Eastern versions of brands sold across Europe have repeatedly been found to be inferior in quality to those sold in the West, Eurova said, even when they are wrapped in the exact same branding. How did we miss this?
And by the way, I said that lots of people have looked into this, media outlets and consumer advocates and whatnot.
That was a great article you found.
And by the way, it's also not hard to find similar studies being carried out in the Czech Republic compared to German products, in Bulgaria and Slovakia. So all over this part of Europe, people are aware of this. And it's very easy to go right across the border to Austria, to Germany, whatever, and get the same product and test it. So let's just
Coca-Cola, John.
I got my own Coca-Cola example.
I'm so disappointed in you, Coke.
Let's just agree.
Disappointed in you.
Let's just agree to skip the part where we wonder if it's happening, because it is happening. There's absolutely no question. This has been documented over and over and over. So let's go straight to the part where we ask about why did they do this and how can they get away with it?
I think one of the main reasons, well, I'll answer the second question first. I think they can get away with it because, unfortunately, a Polish consumer is still a lot less demanding than a lot of other countries. I think they realize that if, they're sorting a product in Germany that they're producing there and they notice that some of them are a little bit below their quality standards, we could sell them off in Poland at full price. They'll be fine with it. I had that with a set of cutlery and utensils that I got as a gift from my grandmother.
Bureaucrats, John.
Where, Valium Bosch, I think, is the company. They're, high quality cutlery. Yeah. And, you wouldn't expect to have in a set, a single one of them bent or out of shape. And my, one kitchen set, I had 5 that I had to replace. Because, and it came out to be true that for the Polish market, the quality checks they do are lower.
They send the factory defects to Poland. Huh?
I do have a favourite one. Philadelphia cream cheese is made with nearly 100% cottage cheese in Germany and is made with milk and milk proteins and some sugary crap in Poland. You cannot tell me the Poles don't love cottage cheese. They're the number one consumers of cottage cheese on earth.
Yeah, a lot of dairy products on that list of dairy products that are just, again, instead of high quality cottage cheese and cream, they get fillers and various sugars.
We
and
have
whatnot.
to be a little bit careful with that one. I think you're absolutely right in that with that example, Dave. But I mean, this was famously done, I think, at a comparison of US branded products and their equivalent in the UK. And they stood it was a photograph showing the labels of the ingredients side by side. And the USA one had the list of ingredients was 2.5 times as long as the one on the British one. And of course, part of the reason for that is literally regulations, food labelling regulations.
And the bureaucrats in the EU.
The ingredients are exactly the same, but in the US, you maybe have to put down, in fact, of course, in the UK, when this is going back, 20 years or so, when we were eagerly joining the European Union, and suddenly labelling regulations changed. We had to put all the E numbers down. People got very upset about E numbers, even after it was pointed out that some of these E numbers are in fact, naturally occurring, plant-based products.
And also, with the example of food, you're right when you say regulation is definitely a factor. But when it comes to kind of demanding answers from the manufacturers, one of the responses that I saw over and over online was some variation of this. It's we are simply responding to local tastes.
Oh my God!
That's their explanation. And this is mayonnaise. The example of mayonnaise was given in our Facebook feed quite a few times. But, it tastes different in almost every country. So that's kind of the standard answer, Dave, is that we're only giving customers what they want.
To use another specific example, I just can't picture it. They're in the Spar in Austria and they're in the Spar in Poland. And the Polish manager has a little taste and he goes, what would you like in this strawberry yogurt? And everybody at once goes, oh, definitely 40% less strawberry, please.
Yeah, that's what doesn't make sense with that argument. Because it seems that in Eastern European and Polish market, it seems like Poles always have a taste of preference towards the products that turn out to be cheaper for us to produce with crappier materials. Oh, isn't that a happy coincidence for them?
How about this? Let me throw this out there. Maybe this is not nice to say, and the people at the big companies would never admit to this, but maybe they say, or maybe they still have the impression that the Polish market is much more price sensitive. It's much more important to keep the price low, and that means necessarily cutting corners on premium products. Sorry, Poland. If you want these prices, this is the version that you get. How about that? Is that an explanation?
I don't think so, not really. And I think the argument that I made at the beginning had more to do with the fact that in Poland, the culture of consumerism isn't ingrained in the same way in a lot of Western countries. So when they get a product here that isn't just right, they're happy with it. They won't complain as often. I mean, Poles will complain a lot about a lot of things, but actually products and things they buy, they won't complain. They won't boycott. They won't organize. Maybe now with the internet, it's starting to change a little bit.
I do want to share this example that Dave mentioned a minute ago. I have to share this example concerning Coca-Cola. And let me just establish my credentials as an expert when it comes to soda and things. I absolutely will not be challenged challenged on this subject at all. But I noticed this many, many years ago. First of all, back in Florida, if you buy like a 2-liter bottle, or of course now in Poland it's not 2 liters anymore, it's like 1.8 or 1.7 or whatever, the biggest bottle there is basically. If you open it in Florida, you've got about 3 days before it starts to go flat. In Poland, you have about 8 to 10 hours before it is undrinkable because it's flat. Dave, I think you back me up on this. You open it for lunchtime. By that evening, basically, if there's any left, you can't drink it anymore. That's a huge, huge difference, right? Now, I refuse to believe that Poles like it that way. It's an adaptation to local tastes. At the same time, though, I don't see how it's much more expensive to put, carbonation into the Coke to make it last much longer. That's a quality issue to me. And again, there's no doubt that is the fact. That's the case, rather.
I've never checked carbonation levels, when I'm flying between countries. I've checked can
Trust
sizes.
me on this.
Carbonation footprint.
I do notice that, I really get annoyed when the bottle isn't screwed up tight because I feel like my bottle of Coke within like the next day or so is basically flat.
You don't even get 24 hours with a bottle of Coke here.
But I wonder, like, it's
Coke, please. What is that?
It's a physical process that carbonates it. So I'm not exactly sure how, unless there's some other ingredient which reacts with the carbonation, or the cap is differently shaped and pressed here in Europe.
I would imagine the ratio of fructose is what's changing it. It's harder to keep it fluffy.
Chemistry. Give you another example. I don't know which category this falls under, though. Żubrówka, the famous Polish vodka brand. You can get it in America, but it's a bit different. First of all, it's different because there's an ingredient called, I think it's pronounced coumarin. Is that right? Coumarin? Curcumin, okay, which is not legal, at least in that form in America, so that's taken out. And also the famous blade of grass is absent because, as we all know from the famous example of Kinder eggs, you cannot have an inedible, of course you can't eat grass, I know, but you cannot have an inedible item inside an edible item anyway. So Żubrówka is a little bit different, and therefore it tastes a little bit different. I guess a Żubrówka expert would be able to tell the difference. Now, that's an example of regulations coming into play. Is it necessarily a question of inferior versus superior quality? I don't know. That's a subjective measure. But these are the kinds of things that kind of result in identical, or what are supposed to be identical products, being slightly different in one market to another. And so would you be inclined, Dr. Mike, to give manufacturers a break when it comes to this, that they're only doing what they have to do because of regulations? Or is there some sinister money-saving plan behind some of the efforts that result in our inferior washing powder here in Poland?
When it comes to the argument of regulations, then you can clearly cite which regulations are forcing them to create a different product for a given market. The thing is, first of all, in the European Union, lots of regulations are streamlined. So with products sold in Germany and Poland, they basically have to adhere to the same regulations.
There's no excuse for changing ratios. Like, this
exactly.
Stuff of basically bulking stuff up. That's the definition of fucking fraud. Like, give us a break. Let's not like too fancy down the science path here, lads. Let's just call it out for what it is. Pure and naked profiteering and illegal fraud.
I also forgot to mention another thing cited very often.
The European Commission. Put them on the block.
Another thing cited very often in these comparisons of Polish goods versus foreign goods is that even when they are identical, the Polish version has, let's say, 20 grams less or 50 grams less at the same price than you get in Germany.
I am actually drinking a 440ml can of Guinness here that was not significantly discounted, let me assure you.
Wouldn't you think, again, I go back to the theory about Poland being such a poor country and we're so price sensitive and we need that's how they see us. Maybe that's how they see us.
I know it's just.
But it's just kind of weird that maybe they think that they have to cut their production costs to the bone to get the lowest possible retail price, and maybe that's the result of it. Because I can't think of anything else. I refuse to believe. I don't want to believe that the explanation behind this is just pure hatred for Polish consumers. I just don't.
I mean, an argument against that would be these what's called chain of stores called Alma, which basically sold 90% of their products for exactly the same as everywhere else, plus 10% maybe slightly better products. But even their regular products were more expensive than everywhere else.
They were, yeah.
And they were packed, those stores. The only
Polish company too.
Yeah, and they only went under because of bad, basically, management.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Snack Masters? This is a show where Fred, the French guy, Gordon Ramsay's mate, hosts, and he challenges 2 Michelin-starred kitchens to recreate, with no help, a household snack. And let's say it's Monster Munch in one episode, which is way... which is made from a kind of a fine ground maize, right? But at the same time that they're trying to figure it out, you're exploring the factory and you're seeing these crystallized, beautiful machine processes that are actually kind of artistic. You know, they're so scientific and they're not ashamed of these processes at all. In fact, they're showing off how fresh the ingredients are, how great everything is. And the whole time you're wondering, yes, but we won't be seeing the inside of our factory in Poland, shall we?
I want to ask about two more examples, and we happen to have an expert on each example here with us in the room. Josh, I'll start with you. Let me ask you about cigarettes. You're our go-to guy for cigarettes. Have you noticed a difference between what you get here in We're talking premium brands now, familiar brands, what you get here versus what you get in Western European countries?
Well, no, I haven't. But I mean, that's mainly because since living in Poland, if I ever travel to Western European countries where cigarettes are vastly more expensive, I don't see why I should pay local prices when I can, kind of pack my own.
You have any reason to believe that in the UK it's a richer, fuller flavor or anything like that?
No, I've got no reason at all. But I mean, in fact, I never got a reply, but I did kind of like send out some tentacles of research on whether... Because my understanding is although the European Union does have kind of broad standards that apply across all the member states on a number of goods, my understanding is that actually recipes for cigarettes do vary from country to country according to local tastes, and the only things that are important from the European Union's perspective is that they stick within the guidelines in terms of nicotine and tar content, which is something that has been changing over the years. And this is why, if you buy like kind of hooky Ukrainian or Russian cigarettes, they do taste considerably different and stronger because they don't have these kind of regulations.
I have noticed something about Polish. Now that I'm questioning everything, right? Polish cigarettes go dry quicker. If you buy a box of fags here, 3 or 4 days later, even if you keep them in a Tupperware box, if you roll that tobacco out, that will be totally ground up, totally dry, whereas that doesn't happen in Ireland. Cigarettes.
Other example I want to ask about, Dave, you're our McDonald's expert here. Have you noticed a difference between the standard menu items you get here versus
give restaurants a bit more of a break because they're buying the beef locally, of course.
Specifically McDonald's.
Specifically McDonald's, I would say Irish beef just has a slightly better taste, but the beef patties here are grand. They're quite good. I mean, the standard of McDonald's food, I wouldn't say it's...
Because that was mentioned quite a lot in our Facebook feedback, fast food, and it seems to me, like you say, that local suppliers would have a huge influence on any variation.
KFC, I'm with the guys on KFC in terms of it's the most shocking menu difference. Like you go in, there's no gravy, there's no popcorn chicken, there's loads of stuff that you can get in Ireland that you can't get, and mashed potato, lots of options.
I never have been a massive consumer of KFC, but I have to say that
shit here.
Well, no. This is. This is. It may well be, but
like a band.
The point is that I think that KFC control their franchisees a lot less strictly than McDonald's do, for example. And in fact, I can remember clearly noticing a difference between kind of, say, a KFC from Camden High Street or Upper Street, Islington, and a KFC from somewhere in South London, which I can't be asked to name, because literally KFC varies in London.
On the KFC thing, it's like everybody I've talked to basically always tells me that they think KFC here is a lot better. I mean, I don't eat that much KFC.
The chicken pieces here are like baby deformed chicken.
I'm not talking about this. I'm just basically about the crispiness and the freshness. Last time I had KFC,
where are you comparing it to?
I mean, I've had KFC in London where I hated it. I was like, it was grossed out. It was like soggy and weird. Even though
6 times more expensive.
And then I had it a few times in the States when it was like meh. And here, at least the few that I've had in Krakow here have all been pretty good and consistent. I don't know the sizes because, to be honest,
Dave's right. We need the sides here. We need the mashed potatoes and gravy and the baked beans.
Thank you. The Colonel runs this game a lot tighter in Dublin.
The one more example I want to throw out there as well that kind of illustrates what we're talking about. This was given to us a couple of months ago, actually, by one of our listeners, Robert. Hey, Robert, thank you for this. It's a link to, we'll put it on the episode, on our Facebook page under this episode. It's a link to Netflix around the world. It compares the available titles, the libraries available around the world compared to the United States, using the U.S. as kind of a benchmark. And, the percentage of the titles available in America in various countries. And Poland is down there. I think it's like 12% of the TV shows and like 17% of the movies. which places us well
behind
below.
Haiti.
We're behind Bangladesh. We're behind like Belarus. No offense, Belarus, but come on. Why is Poland so low on the list? And okay, I guess there are distribution issues involved here and legal issues involved, but why would like Scandinavia, part of which is in the EU, just like we are, why would they get so? Scandinavia is like in the 80s, 80%, almost 90% of the U.S. library, and we're 17%, 15%.
And this is a huge market.
Why are we getting screwed
people
on Netflix? Any theories on this?
This one drives me nuts.
Netflix and fucked, yeah.
I have to say, this one is shocking. When you see the figures, like it just makes you think,
unbelievable.
Like kind of fuck you, Netflix.
Well, how many lectors are there working full time in Poland?
And they have to dub everything.
Because firstly, it has to be said that in Scandinavia, like everybody speaks English better than anybody in England or America.
Maybe there's some extra cost. I mean, Belarus. I mean, what's the difference?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, that was an interesting one.
Point actually. I only view this through the lens of being a native English speaker. I still think 12 and 17% justify that.
Pathetic.
For me, the lecture argument makes no sense because, well, Netflix is buying these shows from the production companies for the distributors and stuff like that. With the exception of Netflix originals, they don't create the content; they're just buying it. And for some reason, in Poland, they decided not to buy as much as in other countries. Yes. There are the distribution rights that are different, which means the costs are different. One movie will be in one package deal with these companies in one country, another country will be a completely different setup.
It's a little bit cheaper here as well. I mean, it's 50 zloty for the family pack here. I think it's 20.
But you look at this list, guys, and we are literally behind like El Salvador.
It's like $12 or something.
We're behind like Kyrgyzstan. Again, no offense to anybody, but what the hell? The Netflix library here is pathetic.
I mean, there are things on Netflix that, for instance, you can't get in the U.S. I'm not even talking about, for instance, like Polish shows, understandably, of course, that's for local market. But, for instance...
€16, sorry,
Star Trek, for instance, the new Star Trek Discovery show... And Picard is here on Netflix in Poland. Not Picard. Picard's on Amazon. It makes everything more confusing.
Get your story straight,
US,
Dr. Mike.
You couldn't watch Star Trek on Netflix because that was under CBS All Access, which was a competing streaming site. The thing is, Netflix bought the international rights to pump and CBS
there should
sold
be more because we're not affected by these legal messes they have in America. Then,
when they do that, they usually have it on delay in the US as well.
No, but usually it's the other way around. Usually, the thing is, you can have a mess in one country and a mess in another country, and those two messes kind of become messy.
So
in
Dr.
a third
Mike, I
country.
wonder if once Disney Plus starts up here, if Netflix will kind of open the tap a little bit.
Yeah, you definitely see a lot more. But the only problem is Netflix will also probably lose a lot of its content that it has right now.
That's true.
Because like the Marvel movies are basically gone just because Disney is like sucking them back in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We definitely get screwed on the Netflix front here for sure.
But there is some good news. Apparently, Capri Sun orange drink has 13% more orange juice in it than in Germany.
So there is that.
Surely Capri Sun couldn't be Capri Sun if it actually has orange in it. So
that's true. And I think there was
Sunny Delight.
Dave, there was one other example that was cited a few times.
Milka Oreo bar.
Yeah, exactly. One of the rare examples where we have the better version,
which are bloody good. I have to be honest with you. Have you ever had the one which has the cookie kind of studded through it?
Good stuff.
That is filth.
Good stuff. Final words on the subject of Poland getting screwed on various consumer goods.
I have to say this was a very interesting topic to research. Some of the articles I read shocked me, to be honest with you. I suppose I would have had a bit too much faith in the power of in the standards of these companies to do such things. I do believe a lot of it's naked profit grabbing. I think we've given them, the circumstances of lower prices in these markets is mitigated by the lower cost of production, John. So I've never really bought that argument at all. I mean, they're literally bulking out products and selling it as the exact same thing. I hope a big investigations opened by the Commission, or I'll have to catch up on that actually. What's happening?
Big corporations take note. The KrakCast is on your case. We will hunt you down.
I didn't mean the European Commission. I meant the KrakCast Commission. I'm convening.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
Thanks again to everybody who helped us out on the internet thread, the Facebook thread for that.
We love that.
And if you listen to this and you can think of something that we missed, a good example of, again, Polish consumers getting screwed, please post it and let us know. Maybe we'll come back to the topic someday. But thanks again for everybody's help.
And thanks, Michael. Bread.
Yeah, for your one-word contribution, Mike. Thanks for that.
I've no idea. Bread.
KrakCast.pl is the website. Check out all of our back episodes. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time on the KrakCast.